Today, we are going to be looking at a very simple topic, which I just want to remind us of, where we are looking at selected runs, where you can run a selected run on payday, and we're going to be looking at that. But before we go on to look at the selected run, I just want to give you an update from Zimra so that we can actually have a look and see. I would like to discuss with you this update that has come from Zimra. And I believe you can see my screen now. And let me just start that as well, so that we are all able to see. Right. So Zimra on Friday published a public notice, which I want just to discuss with you quickly. This public notice pertains to the submission of our ITF1, which we are supposed to remit here to the to Zimra. So here, this is the Employment Non-FDS ITF1. So the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority hereby reminds all taxpayers that the income tax self-assessment return form and income tax individual in employment non-FDS ITF1 were due on the 30th of April 2026. The due date has been extended to the 30th of May 2026 to allow all complying taxpayers the opportunity to submit correct returns. Taxpayers are reminded to submit outstanding returns for the previous years. Also take note of the public notice number 25 on voluntary disclosure and number 19 on tax compliance obligations for trusts, which are available on the Zimra website. The others we're not worried about, but the one that I wanted to take your attention to was the ITF1, where it was due on the 30th. In other words, it was due last week on Thursday. That's when we were supposed to have submitted all our ITF1s. Remember, the ITF1 is supposed to be submitted by an employee, one, who resigned during the year, last year, 2025, or who joined a company during the year and does not have a complete year with the organization, that is in 2025, and also an employee that has a number of income streams. In other words, they have more than one employer and they are getting salaries from more than one employer. Those employees are supposed to submit an ITF1.
Are we allowed to interrupt?
Yes, Mr. Spencer?
Are we allowed to interrupt in these Zoom sessions?
No. What you can do is, if you have any questions, we are going to give you a chance to ask your questions at the end of our presentations. But since we are already interrupted, you can go ahead and ask your questions, so that I can also...
I'll ask at the end. Thank you.
Oh, all right, that's fine. Okay. So with the public notice, what that means is, if you have any employees that fit that criteria, please ensure that they also submit their ITF1s by the 30th of April. But according to this public notice that we have been given, the extension is now up to the 30th of May 2026. So it means that we've been given an extra 30 days to be able to submit the ITF1. Now, just to give you what has been happening with one or two other clients that we have had, maybe we can also share together the experiences that we've had to go through. One of our clients went and in fact, they went onto the site, onto the terms platform. And if you go there right now, you're going to realize that the ITF1 form cannot be filled in electronically. In actual fact, it's not activated. It's not there. So they had initially said that the ITF1 form is to be done electronically. And so when the due date, when the commissioner called for the ITF1s on the 1st of April for people to submit, we could not submit on the terms platform. people then had to use a different remedy. This client said to us, there are forms that you can now download, the ITF1, which you can download from the Zimra website, and you manually fill them out, and then you go and do manual submissions. So this client went on to download the form and did the manual filling in of the forms for their employees. The employees filled them in, and then the employees took their ITF1s to the Zimra office here in Harare at Kurima House, and they were turned away for very interesting reasons. Zimra was saying the people who attended to them, and we do not know how far true this is, and we have also inquired and still we haven't had a good reason. They were turned away because the Zimra officials were saying that the ITF1 manual submission is only reserved for employees that are terminated. And actually, that's not very true, because if you remember very well, it is for any employee who is non-FDS in the year 2025. Regardless of their employment status this year, we're simply looking at the year 2025. So when we called the FDS department, the FDS department also said the old position still stands. They were actually puzzled why those who were accepting the forms were giving that kind of information. So you may have also had an experience sending in manual forms and being turned away. You can also share your experience if you have done that. Also, when we did our investigations, they said that they have extended the period up to the 30th of May, most probably to allow themselves time to activate the electronic form. And I believe that is probably what they are working on right now, so that the electronic form is then ready before the end of May. And so we will see, we are still watching that space. You can also watch that space and you can also see. I don't know if any of our other clients have been able to submit their ITF1s. Maybe if you can share with me, if you have any experience that you have had with your ITF1, you can share on this platform. I give you this chance maybe to also share your experiences. Have you been able to submit? If not, what are the challenges that you're facing, so that we can also advise each other? Maybe if you can come on and we can discuss. If you have any experience that you've had, you can unmute yourself and we can discuss if there are any. All right, it seems like there are no submissions to be made in regards to the ITF1 that was supposed to be submitted. Remember, the ITF1, it is not the employer's onus to fill out that form. It is an individual tax return form. So it is the employee that is supposed to do that form and fill out that form, and they fill it out using P6 forms that are issued by the employer. So you are obligated as an employer to issue P6 forms to your employees at the end of the fiscal year for those that are non-FDS, so that they can compile the P6 form from their current employer and any other P6 forms from the previous employers that they would have had in the same year. What that means is, if an employee is to resign and is terminating their contract of employment, please ensure that on them going, you just don't give them their last pay slip. You also give them a P6 form, which you can print from the payroll directly, and you can give it to them so that they can have their last pay slip, including their P6 form, so that they are able to complete an ITF1 at the end of the year and then remit that to Zimra. And then lastly, on this issue, before I move on to today's topic, the last thing that I also want to remind each other is that if you have non-FDS employees for year ending 2026, we are now looking at the current year in preparation for year ending 2026. If you have people that have joined you after the month of January, who joined you in February going forward, please ensure that you have taken an update from Touchstone. In fact, it will be good if you haven't received any update from Touchstone. It'll be good for you to get an update from us. Why are we talking about this update? Because we need you to ensure that the new regulations from TAMS in regards to non-FDS employees are also implemented on your payrolls. What are these new regulations? ZIMRA now says that for all non-FDS employees, and what are non-FDS employees? Non-FDS employees, these are employees that have joined your organization after February. They are all non-FDS employees. So if you have such employees, ZIMRA is now saying that they cannot access any credits during this fiscal year. They can only be given these credits after they complete the ITF1 and submit it to ZIMRA, and ZIMRA is the one that will then issue the employee with the credits. Which credits are we talking about? 1, the elderly person's credit. 2, the disability credit. 3, the blind person's credit. And the most common, number 4, the medical credit. So if you have any employees that have a medical, that are on a medical aid society and they have joined your organization during the year, please ensure that you take an update from Touchstone. You can get in touch with our support team and they can actually be able to help you with that. They will give you an update that will stop non-FDS employees from accessing those credits, because ZIMRA is saying they cannot access them up until the end of the year. So ensure that you take that update and update your own payroll. Right. Okay. So with that, let's go on and look at the topic of the day, which is the selected run. And now when you look at the selected run, I've got... All right. Can you guys still hear me? I have got Mr. Spencer saying that he cannot hear me, or the volume has gone down. Can you guys hear me clearly? Can somebody else confirm if you can hear me clearly?
Loud and clear.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mtamba. Thank you for that.
Crystal clear, Nick.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Piri. Thank you for that. So let us proceed. So maybe, Mr. Spencer, can you just check on your machine? Check and make sure that your volume is also up so that you can hear me loud and clear. All right. So when you're looking at your selected run, this is a very simple topic, very easy. And I'm not going to take much time on this one. Your selected run, this is when you do not want to run all your employees on the payroll when you're doing this particular run. PayDay has the ability to be able to process a selected run where you can select a particular department, or you can select a particular grade, or you can even select a particular individual to process. And you can process them on their own without having to run the whole payroll for everybody. This is particularly good, or it is useful when maybe you have a terminated employee and you want to pay them there and then. You can actually go on to PayDay and you can do a selected run for that individual and run the payroll for that one person. That is very much possible. Now, how do we run a selected run on PayDay? So to run a selected run on PayDay, you do this when you are actually running the draft pay run, okay, or the draft calculation. So you go to your processing, and we're saying this is after you've done all your input on payroll. Once you've done your input on payroll, you can then come and do the selected run. Now, to do the selected run, you go to processing, and then under processing, you come down to run draft like you normally do. And then when you now want to run your draft, you come to where it says select range. Now, most of the time when you're running your payrolls, you actually do not activate this facility. You simply go on to put in your pay date, and then you go and click on begin, and then the payroll actually processes for everyone else. But if you want to select a particular department or a particular an individual, you can come and activate the facility. And once you activate the facility, you can then indicate to PayDay which grouping you want to use. So group by, either it can be by employee code, it can be by company, it can be by section, it can be by department, it can be by division, payroll, or pay point. So you can select which grouping you want to use. If I want to use employee code, or in fact, let's start off with department. If I go and select department, it will then give me the range, starting from the start range administration, that is the very first department. And end range, it's actually going to take me to the very last department. So in other words, it has taken all the departments. However, if I want to run for one department, I can then select that particular department. For instance, let's say I want production. I'll select from production, and I'll end the range with production again. In other words, I have selected one department. So when I now run the draft, it's not going to run for everyone else except those in the production department. I can do the same principle if I want to run for one employee. All I do is I come to group by, and then I select employee code. Again, it's going to give me the range from the very first employee, which is 0004, and then to the last range, which is TR021. So it has given me all employees. Now, if I want to run for just one employee, all I then do is I select the employee code for that employee. For example, if I want to run for employee 0005, I'll select from employee 0005 up until I take it again 0005. So it's starting with the first, the 0005 is the first, it's ending with 0005. I have only selected one employee. So when you now run the payroll, it's only going to process one employee. So if I go and click on begin as an example, it's going to process the payroll for that one employee. It will tell me my data verification complete. And then it's actually going to run the pay calculation, and it will run the pay calculation for one employee. I can check if I go to my reports. I can start off by looking at the current schedules. I can look at the cost by code grand total as an example. I'll just put it on dual, and then if I click on preview, you're going to find that it's now only going to show me the process for one employee. All right, give it a moment. As you can see, this is my cost by code grand total. And you can see the number of employees here, it only has one. Why? Because I selected one employee. So the whole pay calculation has been done just for one employee. All these figures that you can see are actually just for that one employee that I have processed. I can even check on my pay calculation control report, which is my pay summary. And if I come to my current statutory reports, I've got my pay calculation control report. And then if I click on preview, you're going to find that the number of employees processed on this, it is also going to indicate just one employee. All right, give it a moment. It's just populating the report so that you can actually have a look and see on that report. So when the report comes up, as you can see, the report now has the total net. This is in regards to one employee. Number of employees processed. You can see that it only has one. So you have now run the payroll just for a selected employee. Like I said, you can also select a run. You can select a company, a section, a division. You'll be able to run for that particular cost center. So this is how we can run a selected run. But there are also some issues that you now need to also consider when you run the selected run. Now, the first thing that you need to remember is that a selected run is not a complete run. What do I mean? It's not a run for everyone. What that means is you cannot create your returns, such as your ZIMRA P2, your NASA P4, whilst you are on a selected run. No. You can only do these after you have processed everyone else. You know, when you're running the selected run, we have a process in payroll that we call staggering the payroll, whereby you find that in some organizations, they may not have enough cash flow to process the whole payroll for everybody at once. So they select a department, they pay a department by department, depending with the availability of their cash flow, of their funds. And so when you now run one department, you can run the department, you run the draft. After you've run the draft, even for one employee, after running the draft, you are supposed to confirm your payroll. You do the normal process that you do. You run your draft, you confirm your payroll, and you can print your pay slip for the employee or for the employees in the department if you've selected a department. And you can also print even the bank schedule, just sending to the bank if it is more than one employee, or you can actually request for the employee's funds if you're paying out one employee. But remember, you have only processed one employee. You still have the remainder of the staff complement to also process. So what that means is when you now confirm your payroll, and let's do this together. So if I'm going to confirm my payroll, if I go to processing, I've run my draft, it's only for one employee. I can actually confirm the payroll for that one employee. And once the payroll is confirmed for that one employee, I can actually print out the payslip and all other reports. But what is important is when you now run this draft, when you've confirmed this, this selected run, once you've finished running it and you've confirmed the payroll and you've paid the employee or employees concerned, remember, you are then supposed to close off the pay run so that you are also then able to run the payroll for the remaining employees. So here you are supposed to come and close off the pay run like we normally do in our normal run. So we close off the pay run. It will ask you, do you wish to close off the pay run? I say yes. And then tell you the pay run has been closed, automatic backup done. I click on OK. It will then ask you the second question. Do you wish to close the accounting period? Here you say no. Why? Because when you close the accounting period, it's rolling over from 1 month to the next. And so you do not want to roll over from 1 month to the next after only running one payroll. You do not want to do that. So what that means is when you now say, when it asks you, do you wish to close off accounting period? You say no. so that you remain in the same accounting period, and then you are able to then process all the remaining employees. Please take note of that. So that at the end, you are then able to process everyone else that has been remaining. What that means is now, when you come to the end of the month, in that particular month, you didn't run one run, but you are running two runs. One, you have run the selected run for either one employee or several employees in a department. And then you are going to run the main pay run, which is now the main payroll that you are actually running. So you have two runs in 1 month. So if you have two runs in 1 month, you then want to do your month-end reports. You do not do them in your current schedules. Remember, when you are doing your normal run, if you want to print out, you go to your current schedules, and then you can go to your cost by code, you can go to your cost by department, you can do all the other reports that you want in your current schedules. But since you now have two runs in that month, you no longer use the current schedules, but you come down to historical reports. Why do you go to your historical reports? Because now you want to go in and get consolidated reports for the two runs. So you're now adding the two runs to get the final figures for that particular month. So you now go on and do the historical runs. You go and select whichever report. You can even do your historical NASA, your historical P4, which is your P4 NASA report, NEC, your ZIMRA P2, all your statutories. You can actually do them in historical. And the good thing about the historical reports, as an example, you will see that it will now allow you to put in the dates. So if you have two runs in the month of April, or two runs in my case, I've got the month of February, I think, sorry, for the month of March, I would then say I would select from the 1st of March 2026 up to the 30th of March. What it means is it's now going to consolidate my two runs and give me my P4 as one report. So please take note, when you now run your selected runs, when you now want to do your month-end reports, don't use current schedules, otherwise it will omit the other runs. Please use the historical cost by department, the historical reports. These are the ones that you are supposed to use. All right. Are there any questions that you guys might have in regards to these ones?
Can I ask a question now about the ITF1?
Yes, sure. You can go ahead, Mr. Spence. You can go ahead.
Okay. It might be a stupid question, but in my case, I have not employed anybody in 2025, somebody new, and nobody has joined my company. Nobody has resigned. So the ITF1 does not apply to my employees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. You've answered my question.
All right. No, because the ITF1 is only for those that have joined during the year. So if you didn't have anyone joining your organization during the year in 2025, that means there is no need for you to worry about the ITF1. There are no employees that qualify for it. So you are safe, Mr. Spence. All right. Somebody else wanted to come in. Millicent, you wanted to come in?
Okay, so I have two questions. The first one on the referring back to the ITF1. So everybody that joined last year after February, even if they don't have any tax credits like your blind person, what, do they still have to complete the ITF1?
Yes. So the ITF1 is not only just for them to access their credits, but it's actually a requirement at law that because they joined your organization in February going onwards, they are supposed to submit, even if they didn't work anywhere else or they don't have multiple income streams. The mere fact that they joined your organization in February, they are supposed to then also submit the ITF1.
Okay, so I'll just print the P6 is at December 2025, or do I have to print month on month?
Okay, that's a good question. All you need to do is to print your P6 for December 2025. That will consolidate all the payments that you made to the employee from February when they joined up to the end of the year. And then the employee, currently, because there is no ITF1 on the terms platform, you can download the manual form and the employee can fill out that form and using the P6 form that you have also given them. If they have a P6 form from their previous employer, then they are supposed to add the two and then put the consolidated figures on the ITF1. And they take the ITF1 themselves to the tax office.
All right, thank you so much. And then my
Yeah, most
second question is on the select pay run. So you're saying we've confirmed the payroll, we've closed it, and then we are not closing the, what is it, sorry, closed pay run.
Accounting period.
Accounting period, yes. So how do I then go back to then processing payroll for everybody else?
Okay, so when you now run the draft and confirm your payroll for your selected run, when you close off the pay run, remember we're supposed to close off the pay run. That is the one that will then take you back to be able to process everyone else. Okay, so when you close off the pay run, it will take you back to input mode, but you are still in the same month. Unlike going into the following month. So you're back in input mode, but you're still in the month of April, and then you're able to process everybody else. Just make sure when you're now running everyone else, you exclude the employee that or the employees that you've already processed.
Oh, okay. All right.
Otherwise, they will be paid twice on the selected run and on the current run that you would have done. So ensure that you don't process those employees as well.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Millicent, you're welcome.
Hi, Nick. I've got a question.
Yes, Mr. Pin.
On the P6, do we have a historical P6 now that we are now in 2026? And we are talking about the ITF1 for those employees who joined during the year. So do we have a historical P6? Where can I find it?
Okay. On payroll, yes, you can get, it's not a historical P6 per se, but we have, if you go into the payroll, let me just go back into payroll. When you're now processing your reports, your year-end reports, we have a special area which says year-end reports. And you can see you've got year-end reports for the current, and these will be for the current year, which will be 2026. And there's year-end reports for the previous. This is for the previous year, which will be 2025. So if you go in there, you also have the P6 form previous, and you can print either of these. You can print a full page or you can do it on A5, which is for the previous year. So you can use this one to print the P6 forms for your employees for 2025.